Put your hands together for the hosts of DevCentral Connects live from their home studio, Bullam and Jason Rahm.
Hello there, community. Welcome to DevCentral Connects. I am your host today, Jason Rahm, and I am super excited about what we're not just doing today, but what we're doing for the month of March. This is Microservices March, and Nginx is doing it big, and it's going to be amazing. And so, I'm excited about it. Going to bring on my co-host today, Bullam. Boo, how are you?
I am good, Jason. Also super excited. I think every engineer just loves hands-on keyboard time, and we got a lot of that coming up.
Yeah, and what's great about the month is it's a mix, right? We get the theory, we get the why, the what, and the how, with the way that they're structuring everything. So it's great. You start off the week, you get your session time, and then your application time, which is great. But as we do every time we start this show, we start with a question. And our guest, I was doing a little bit of research. Our guest today is a little bit of a coach as well. She does some stuff on the side from her day job stuff. And so I was thinking about, what is one skill that you think everybody should have? And we'll ask Jen when she comes on. But what's one skill that you think everybody should have?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. What is... You know what? I think budgeting is a skill that everyone should have, because you don't learn that, well, at least I didn't learn that in school. And immediately when you move out and have to start managing your own finances, that becomes really important for sustenance and being able to feed yourself and put a roof over your head. So I would say budgeting is a pretty important skill. How about you, Jason?
So I was thinking, I guess, good life skill there. And for sure, I think finance is one of those things that maybe take away the geometry requirement in high school and put personal finance in there. It's like, learn how to live. Because if you don't get that at home, if your parents don't teach you that, your first couple of years could impact your next 20, depending on how much debt you take on. But for me, one of the things, in the work environment is humility. Learning to be humble, learning to be able to stand up in a meeting, say, "Hey, you mentioned something I have no idea about. What are you talking about? Can you tell me about that?" There's so many people that I come across is like they're terrified to not know what's being asked, and so they never speak up and they never pick it up, and so they hurt themselves by not being able to just say, "Hey, don't know anything about that. Tell me, teach me." And so that would be the skill that I would have there. Okay.
Well, I will say that you are a humble person, Jason, and you're not afraid to put your hand up around stuff and ask questions. So I appreciate that you're giving that advice to other people.
Yeah, and not that that's always easy. I won't say that. Yeah, I'm the most humble person around, right? Nobody is more humble than me. No, it's like everybody struggles with pride, right? And I'm not excluded from that, but definitely being able to display the skill of humility, helps you in, your work stuff, helps you in life. So that would be mine. All right. Well, I want to get to what we're talking about. We can talk about some promotional stuff at the end, but I want to bring on our guests here real quick. So let's go. Please welcome to the show, everyone, Jen Giles. She is a marketing manager within the Nginx group, and she is going to bring all the goodness that Microservices March is going to be for us. So, Jen, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Great to be here.
And so, for you, I know you do a little bit of coaching on the side. What's the one skill? Maybe for you, what's the one skill you see that most people lack that hurts them?
Oh, that's a tough one. I was thinking about the most important skill most people lack.
Well, bring that.
I'm going to go back to the original question. And I'd be curious if you think this is a skill or not, but I think curiosity is one of the most important life skills. It can guide you. It can make you more empathetic. It can make you more humble. The more that you learn about other people and, their worldviews and their value, the more that you can adopt humility and, be at peace in the world, and also, just develop and grow. And so, when I coach people in, leadership and management skills, one of my favorite books is called The Coaching Habit. And that book, it's by Michael Bungay Stanier. We can find the link and drop it in. It is all about asking questions when you're helping someone, not telling them what to do. And so when you ask questions, not only is it generating curiosity on your part, but it's also generating curiosity on the part of the person that you're trying to help. And so, I'm a people manager at F5, and when I'm working with my team or with colleagues, I really try to approach things from curiosity. I don't know everything. I have a lot to learn, and that's really what's gotten to me where I am in my career now. I have been in tech for about 3 years, and it's constant curiosity that's helped me really get deep into the world that we're here to talk about today, Kubernetes.
Yeah, that's great. I think curiosity is a fantastic skill to have. You see it in children, and curiosity about the world around them. The age between like 1 and 6 is fantastic to watch. For those of you out there who have kids, you know what I'm talking about. It's like they're curious about everything. But then, I don't know if it's the weight of the world, or they just move on to other skills or whatever. But some they kind of lose that. But the ones that I like working with, the ones that I like mentoring, are exactly that. The ones that are curious, because I don't care. Like if I'm a hiring manager, I don't care that how to do XYZ. What I care about is whether you're curious about learning that, because if you're curious about it, you're going to pick it up. You're going to do it.
Absolutely.
And you're going to wrestle that to the mat until you know it. But if your attitude is that, well, I don't really know anything about that, let's focus on what I do know. Those are the red flags for me. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah.
All right. So we're here to talk about Microservices March. First of all, what is Microservices March? Where did that come from? I know that we had one last year as well.
Yeah, this is our second year.
What's the intent of Microservices?
So where it came from was, as a company pre-acquisition and today post-acquisition, one of the characteristics that really defines NGINX is education and community engagement. And we do an annual conference or virtual get together in the fall. And it's, much more conference style, where you come in and there are keynotes and the like. But what we really wanted to do was break the conference format and do something really different for the community that's very forward-looking and education focused. And so when you're thinking about app development, one of the more common characteristics of modern apps is microservices-based architectures and microservices apps. And so we decided, as that is an area where a lot of our community is growing and learning, and it's it's literally what's connecting us right now, right? In this platform, that we should spend a month each year where we focus on providing community education somewhere in the microservices realm. And so when we did it last year, it was, we'll say, breadth instead of depth. And so we covered lots of different microservices topics, from what is it, why should you care about it, all the way to, okay, you're in Kubernetes, what does visibility look like, or traffic splitting. For this year, what we decided to do was, rather than breadth, go into depth. And so we're focusing narrowly on the topic of Kubernetes networking. And that's for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's my job. So I live and breathe in Kubernetes every day. And that's where a lot of our customers are. And what we're finding is that Kubernetes networking, Kubernetes in general isn't that old. It's less than 10 years old. Adoption, while it's still definitely climbing, we find that there are a lot of people who aren't using it yet. And one of the top skill sets that's missing to be successful with it is a networking skill set, because Kubernetes networking, while not completely different from other networking disciplines, is quite different in terms of the concepts and tools that Kubernetes brings. And so what we're doing this year, again, it's a month, and unsurprisingly, we went for alliteration. We could have done Kubernetes March, but that's no fun. So it's Microservices March. Sometimes we call it Microservices March Madness. And we'll be focusing the entire month on providing free education to the community on Kubernetes networking.
Well, you got a play on words there too, because the Microservices March, you're like marching forward in your skill set, in addition to it being the month. So that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's a little like, spring and growth, and that's what learning's all about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, Boo, one of the things that I guess not just the F5 audience, the traditional F5 audience, but other, employee bases have had the challenges finding a way to help transition the traditional network engineer, network operations teams into the app-centric world. And what do you think about the approach here for the Kubernetes networking for our particular audience?
Yeah, I think it'll be pretty cool in that, from what I've seen so far, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jen, but you don't have to have any of the learnings from last year. We can start from, the first webinar, and somebody's going to be able to take like traditional networking skills, and they can just move forward over the next 4 weeks and be able to build on that.
Yeah, it does certainly help to have some basic understanding of how a microservices architecture is different from a monolithic architecture, but it's not required. We have designed the program so that you can walk in with zero Kubernetes experience, and it will progressively move through 4 weeks, 4 progressive units, taking you from the very, very basic, how do you get your traffic in there, all the way up to shadow deployments, canary releases, et cetera. And so it's really designed for it to meet each person who's participating where they are. So you don't have to do the whole month. If you already understand how an ingress controller works, great. Skip the first week maybe, or just, watch the live stream for review. And then join us in the second week when we're talking about API gateway use cases in Kubernetes, for example.
Yeah, one of the parting...
Go ahead, Boo.
One of the parting gifts from Mr. John Wagnon was a series on modern application architecture. So folks can check out the DevCentral YouTube for some high-level whiteboarding stuff if they want to get prepared, and then join us for the next 4 weeks.
Yeah, great recommendation. It's a great series.
Yeah, for sure. And what I love about the I guess, not necessarily admission, because the people on the inside have known that the networking skills are necessary. But one of the things I hear a lot in talking to people is like, well, the microservices world is leaving me with my networking skill set behind. And that's not true. That's, it's definitely still necessary to have those skills. It's just, maybe they're used in a slightly different way. And so taking a whole month to focus on the networking side, I think is an entry drug. Can I use that for the app services side to say, hey, I should know a little bit about that. And I think that brings appreciation for the developers into the networking world. But also it's an acknowledgement for the network engineers that are saying, hey, okay, yes, my skills are still necessary. So then they come into the microservices side from that side. And so it kind of brings both groups together in a way that maybe they didn't expect.
Yeah, somebody who understands how a classic load balancer works, it's going to be different terminology, but at the end of the day, something like an ingress controller or a service mesh is serving very much the same function. And so it's almost like a translation guide of taking that existing skill set and then just applying it to a new environment.
Yeah, for sure.
I think too, like, if folks were to follow some of the early days of Kubernetes, it was kind of driven towards the application developer. And then I think we've seen, like, as it kind of got into the hands of, hey, this is going to go production now, and people are putting real important workloads on here. And we had all these tools that were from the traditional environments that we're used to, and we need all those again. Because we're used to having all that visibility. Then the networking started to really advance at that point. So all the skills that traditional networkers had before are now like even more required, I would say, in this environment, or at least it gets them a little bit further ahead. They can apply all those things. They can kind of skip past learning some of that stuff and get to the point of getting those tools to make this production ready.
Yeah, I mean, we're absolutely seeing a very common pattern where Kubernetes becomes something that the organization decides that they want to implement because of the benefits for app delivery. And so it is that kind of developer focused decision to adopt it. And so perhaps Kubernetes gets adopted. Well, Kubernetes networking as a skill set is, as far as I know, not available as a college degree. There's certainly some certifications out there, but the pattern we see often is Kubernetes starts to get adopted, and the team that's going to be required to implement it is learning on the fly as they're adopting it. They're picking up that networking skill set. And so the vast majority of these people are coming from a more traditional background. I mean, maybe they're virtualization admins, maybe they're doing DevOps. Common titles we see for people who are managing Kubernetes is a cloud architect or a site reliability engineer. Well, that applies just as much to, cloud native as it does to Kubernetes.
Yeah, that's
I
fascinating.
see we've got a busy chat here. I'm not sure if we have any questions yet.
No questions yet, but we do have Daniel saying my best-selling novel, Application Services, is a gateway. Yeah.
Shout out to Dan.
Yeah. Good to see you, Daniel.
Yep.
And Sebastian, always, hello. Good to see you.
Right.
And
I got a question for you, Jen, and not sure if you've seen this, but the role of SRE at this point, I've started to see maybe some people who used to just be called, not just be called, but their title was systems administrator, and then they flip it to SRE. Would you say that's like just a gradual transition of that role now, like somebody who is traditionally a Windows admin?
I'll say partially.
Yeah.
What we're seeing is kind of three different types of roles or focus areas that someone who came from a system admin background might end up in. And you may have heard kind of a newish job title called a Kubernetes operator. Also could be called a Kubernetes engineer. Maybe we can drop that link to the podcast that Brian and I did yesterday on this topic. So we see Kubernetes operators roughly covering like three kinds of job families. So there's the SRE, that's the person who's going to be involved more likely once Kubernetes is up and running. They're making sure it stays up and running. But before they get involved, there's probably someone from that cloud architect role. And then there's probably some kind of generic IT ops, which again could be a systems administrator. So they may go into any of those three job families, all of which contribute to keeping Kubernetes up and happy.
Oh, very cool. Yeah, I asked that question in that sometimes on our site, community.f5.com, people are asking career questions. How do I progress? Maybe I've been a network admin, security admin for 10 years now, and I'm looking for, what's my next job title or whatever I need to go with that. So yeah, interesting to see those transitions and the names of them.
Yeah, and depending on the size of the organization, it could be one person doing all of those things, right?
Yeah, the soup to nuts guy. Yeah. Okay, so how is the month breaking down? We've got the kickoff and all that. What's going on with Unit 1? And I can share
let's talk structure
a little bit. Yeah.
Ooh, thank you for the visual. So Unit 1 is all about, as it says here, architecting Kubernetes for high traffic websites. And so we're going to begin with our partner Learn K8s on Monday at 8 a.m. Pacific over on the Nginx YouTube channel. And they're going to be helping us with a high level overview of how do you actually expose those services in Kubernetes? What are your options? Because ingress is not the only option. There are things like node port, load balancer. And so kind of going through the different options, the pros and cons of each. After that, we'll be providing a deeper dive is what we're calling it. It's a collection of blogs and videos and ebooks and webinars that can help you dig in to those topics that kind of started at the high level. And then the third part is our hands-on lab, which we're running. It's a browser-based, self-paced lab. That one is going to be specifically on how to reduce Kubernetes latency using an ingress controller and auto-scaling. And I have been testing that lab all week. It's really fun. It not only teaches you how to do that, but kind of shows the guts behind why you're making those decisions, what you're getting out of it. And so we're going to use this model of webinar research collection lab throughout the whole month. And so if you progress through, Unit 2 begins March 14th, and that's going to be all about exposing APIs in Kubernetes. So looking at what are your API gateway options, how can you protect those APIs. And the lab is going to be on rate limiting. So preventing an API in an app from getting overwhelmed by too many requests by implementing rate limiting with the ingress controller. Also a fun one. They're all fun. Then the third week will be on security practices. And this is where we're going to get into not just security practices with using an ingress controller, but also a service mesh as well. And so where we see when we're talking with the community about service mesh is, at this point, most people have heard of it and they think maybe they need one, but they're not sure. And so a lot of the unit will be going over, what are the pros and cons of using one? Because they are definitely notorious for adding overhead and complexity, how to pick one that's going to work well for you. And then you'll get to simulate in the lab a SQL injection attack. And so that's pretty cool. And then the last series is on advanced deployment strategies. So this is a set of strategies that you can use once, again, Kubernetes is up and running. It's probably more likely to be used by an SRE, but could be used by the other job families as well, where you may be using these tools to get additional visibility into how your apps are performing or how your tools are performing so that you can do faster troubleshooting or even prevent things from going down in the first place. And then we'll also be looking at different ways to do traffic splitting. So you may be familiar with blue-green testing, A/B testing, canary deployments. So we're actually going to use Nginx Service Mesh in the last lab to do a canary deployment and roll all the way over gradually to a full blue-green. So fun stuff. It's all designed to be done asynchronously. So you don't need to join at a specific date and time to do anything. And that's what I really like about it. It's not necessarily fitting into our schedule. It's something that can fit into yours.
Very cool.
Yeah, that's amazing. And I love that there's, the holistic approach to it, that you have, you're going to capture the many different learning styles by how you do, starting with the overview and engagement, and then the self-paced stuff, and then the practical. Get your hands dirty into the labs. And on that note, for us, DevCentral Connects for the rest of the month, Boo and I will be doing these labs, and we're going to start the labs. Obviously, we have a half-hour show. These labs take about an hour, and we've got other stuff. So we're going to start each lab live, and then we'll continue to work it. You can join us on DevCentral after that. It's community.f5.com. And you can walk through it, ask questions. We're going to still be walking through it. And so that's going to be a lot of fun. And we're taking the good cop, bad cop approach, but from the, experienced and idiot side of the thing, or I'll say newbie, not idiot.
I'll say novice.
But the ignorant, right? The actually defined word of ignorant. I don't know anything. So Boo is starting week 1 as one who will have been through the lab, and I'll start as having not been through the lab at all. So I'll be asking all the newbie questions and getting into that. And Boo will be my mentor along the way through that lab, and so that'll be fun. Then we'll reverse roles and back and forth throughout the month. So it's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to walk through it on the show, and I'm really excited about that. Jen, any parting thoughts before we wrap this up on your experience with Microservices March last month, coming out of that experience and the growth that you saw in people, and what you hope for people coming out of this month?
Yeah, this is all about empowering people with knowledge and skills so that you can make the best decisions either for your organization or your own career. And so approach it with curiosity.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Jen. We really appreciate you joining us, and we'll be in touch throughout the month, I'm sure.
Sounds good.
All right. Take care.
Yeah.
All right. Boo, are you excited? I'm excited.
I'm pretty pumped for this. This is all stuff that, I was going to say it a little bit earlier, but these are all things that people are going to use in production. So I think what we'll see is, we can get a lot of people can get a Kubernetes environment up and running, but that crossover point to make it production ready, production grade, like this is going to address all that. So I'm pretty excited for it.
Yeah, me too. I wanted to address a couple things that came through. Aditya, hello. Currently facing some migration challenges from bare metal to virtualization. Welcome to the show. Hit us up on DevCentral. You can hit me directly with a private message or email me or whatever, and we'll see what we can do to help on that front. Welcome. Thanks for being here. And of course, we missed Jacques. I think we got everybody else. Kristen, we saw. Yep. Wow. I did get a call out. Boo and Sebastian got call outs, and I'm left hanging. Come on, Sean. And then of course we got the big thumbs up from Kristen. Kristen, how are you? So
Awesome.
All right, well, Boo, what do we have this month? What's going on?
Let's see. Do you want to pop up a random? Oh, there we go. Security sidebar 2022 application protection report. So Peter is going to be hosting next Tuesday. He's got a little promo, so we'll run that after. But he'll be joined by Sander, who is a fan favorite, and they'll be talking about that report.
Yeah, for sure. And of course, on Thursday shows for the rest of the month, we're doing labs. We've already talked about that. 2 weeks, I guess a week and a half on the core. I'm going to go through something that was announced during Agility, and that's the Nginx Modern App Reference Architecture. I teased this on Top 5, but this is, for those of you who have, experienced the Ansible and the Terraform and YAML and all these other little pieces of what comes together as an architecture. And how to build and deploy an architecture. This is the glue, an example of the glue. Obviously, this is not going to be the architecture for everybody. It's a reference architecture, but it's going to be something that we're going to walk through, and that's going to be a fun show. And then, of course, we have Top 5 on the 22nd. And then because there are 5 weeks in March for Tuesdays, there will be a very special episode of a Tuesday's show, which we'll announce as we get a little bit closer.
Yeah. Maybe we can mention some of the logistics for the Thursday labs when we talk about going live, and we'll go through that. Well, actually, first of all, make sure everybody who wants to participate in the labs, go to the link that it was dropped in the comments. Make sure you get registered because it's a hosted lab, so you need to get access to that beforehand. So go register, get access to the labs, and then Jason and myself will run through the labs, and we'll be live on this platform at first, so the interaction will be through the chat, but the plan was to actually jump over to community.f5.com. We'll host an event on there, and then we'll just open up maybe a Zoom, and then people can actually interact with us, and they can make comments on how we're doing the lab, or they can ask questions, and we can try to answer there. We might have to phone a friend if needed as well during that, but we'll try to get everybody through the labs, and hopefully everybody who's big on DevCentral and big on traditional F5 gets to learn all about microservices.
For sure. All right. Well, I think we're at time. We will go ahead and say goodbye to everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you out there in the community.
F5 Labs Annual Application Protection Report.
That was the wrong one. We'll do this again.
F5 Labs Annual Application Protection Report is chock full of breach data, motivations, methods, and certainly provides some mitigations to help protect against such attacks. This year, ransomware and malware are at the top of the list. No surprise. What is a surprise is how they're being monetized. Join us Tuesday, March 8th, 9:30 a.m. Pacific for Security Sidebar as I welcome F5 Labs threat researcher Sander Vinberg to dig into the 2022 edition of F5 Labs Application Protection Report. Click the link to join the live stream. Hope to see you Tuesday, March 8th, 9:30 a.m.